All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with John Reese. John, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Hey, Kevin, thanks for having me.
I'll tell you, you and I have already been getting to know each other a little bit. So I've really been looking forward to this conversation today. And I want to start off by giving a shout out to Joel Bauer because, he's the one who introduced you and I. And
Yep.
what a testament right there to the power of right relationships. Because, I don't know what it was like for you on our first conversation, because we've had several at this point. But for me, I felt like, in fact, I even commented to you right before we hit the record button here. I was like, man, we probably ought to start recording because you and I can talk forever.
It's true. It's true. It's
and,
true.
uh, and that's what it felt like from our very first conversation. I felt like, man, we've known each other for years, all because we got connected through Joel. And so, yeah, I mean, what a testament to the power of right relationships. Well, we're just going to dig right in here, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation, like I said, and I'm going to start with a nice, simple question to get us rolling, and then we'll dive deeper from there. But John, what do you do, and who do you serve?
Okay. So currently, I have a secure communication platform called Quanta Enterprise Comms,
Okay.
and it is the first fully integrated enterprise grade communication platform that automatically deploys quantum resistant encryption for all of your communications, whether it be a video conference like we're having here, where you can share screens and do chats for up to 50 people, a video or a voice call, either an individual or a group, kind of like a FaceTime chat, if you will, with a group or a group phone call, or send chats either individually again or in groups, and share documents for up to 100 megabytes. And our people that we serve are primarily anybody who is interested in the security of their communications and the privacy of their conversations.
Okay.
So if you're using a platform like Zoom or Teams or Signal or whatever, and you're talking about the weather, that's probably fine. But if you're talking about something that's more sensitive and needs to be secured, you probably want to use a platform like Quanta so that you can be sure that nobody's listening in on those conversations.
Okay. Okay. How did you get into doing this kind of work, John? Because I think back when I was a kid, I wanted to be a fireman when I grew up, and I never did. But at the same time, I would have never imagined that I'd be doing what I get to do now. And I would imagine it's probably true for you too. How did you even get here? What's your backstory, John?
So you got to know, and I think I may have told you that God's got a massive sense of humor. Speaking of what you want to do when you're a kid, when I was in elementary school, there was a show. Old guys like us remember, kind of like a Howdy Doody or a Bozo the Clown kind of show. Kids don't know anything about those shows now, but you all went together and you're on TV, and there was a host and an entertainment, that sort of thing. So there was a show in our town called Mr. Knows It, and
Okay.
everybody would go to have their school birthday parties there. So first graders, kindergartners, second graders would be there, and the host would always ask all the kids in the audience, "Hey, what's your name? Where do you go to school? And what do you want to do for when you grow up?" And like a lot of the boys, "Hey, I'm Joey, and I go to Elm Street School, and I want to be a fireman, or I want to be a Superman, or I want to be a pro football player." And the girls, I'm Susie, and I want to be a ballerina or a teacher, or whatever. So here I am in the first grade. I'm on this show, and he's like, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "I want to be a dentist." And my wife was on the same show a year before I was, and he asked her, "She, I want to be a dental hygienist." And so that's what we did. So God has a sense of humor because He put me as a dentist in the field of secure communications. And the reason that that happened was because when I sold my practice in 2018, I got involved with some political organizations. That's where I met Joel, and one of the organizations I'm with, and I started working with a project with Dr. Ben Carson on the association health plans, and found out that there was a serious lack of secure communications at that time in 2019. If you remember, people were getting deplatformed, they were getting censored, they were getting demonetized left and right. If your viewpoint or narrative didn't fall into a certain paradigm.
Yeah.
And so you were vilified, you were cut down, again, people were debanked and everything. But then in 2021, when the social media platform called Parler, if you remember that,
I do
Parler,
remember that.
well, they got kicked off of Big Tech, kicked them off of all the app stores, Google Play and App Play, apps, Apple, the App Store and Google Play. And then more insidiously, Amazon Web Services had their data and they wouldn't give it back.
Oh,
And so
wow.
I saw that as a brazen act of theft, but more importantly, it was a upfront frontal assault on our freedom of speech and freedom of thought. And so we started working on ways to solve that problem, and we came up with a secure communication platform that over the past 6 or 7 years, 6 or 7 years, has evolved into what we now call Quanta Enterprise Comms, and we call it that because again we're the only ones that have the fully integrated, automatically deployed quantum resistant encryption to keep us safe from the threats of quantum computing, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Man, what an amazing story. This is why I love doing what I get to do, hosting these interviews, because every entrepreneur has an amazing backstory, you know?
Yeah,
It's
yeah. Well,
so
mine's pretty crazy. I mean, my dental career, I've been an out of the box thinker and an upstream swimmer my whole career.
yeah.
My philosophy is observe the masses and do the opposite.
There you go. There you
And
go.
one of the other statements I take about risk for sure says if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what inspires you most, John, about the work that you do and the impact that you get to make?
Well, what I'm finding out is that uh, people, especially Americans, need to be educated on this front. And a lot of people are overly trusting of the information they share. I mean, kids will get on the internet and on social media and show all these crazy things they're doing and
Yeah.
all these crazy things they're saying and can't understand why 5 years later they can't get a job.
Yeah.
Because all these things are coming back to haunt them. And some of these politicians you see that have made some of these crazy statements, 2, 3 years ago, and now they're trying to disavow them. But the internet's forever. And people don't understand that, especially the younger people. But even people in the older categories don't understand just how much information is being collected on people every day in real time at a rapid rate. They also don't understand who's controlling that information. So we're trying to educate the population as on how insidious this is. And with the fast emergence of AI, and the fact that foreign governments have caught up to us and maybe even surpassed us, and then quantum computing that can take an AI prompt and cycle that and process that so much quicker than typical computers, we're at serious risk. And so if we don't educate the public as to the alternatives that are out there to protect them, then people are going to be in a world of hurt. We're already losing intellectual property at a rate that's not even funny. Back in 2019, uh, uh, people that were using video conferences like this was about 10 million users per day on the most popular platform.
Okay.
In April of 2020, that shot up to 300 million per day.
So that is a 10 to 300 minutes. So that's like
300
a
fold increase. 300 fold increase.
yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, also what happened about that same time,
Well,
certain
that's when
foreign
COVID
governments,
hit
exactly. You see
and
when COVID,
everybody's home and stuff.
yes. And again, I don't know if it was designed to be this way or if it was just an after effect, but basically all the major platforms have terms of services and privacy policies that tell you that they're going to collect everything you do, including your voice prints and your facial geometry, the content and the context of your conversations and your meetings. All these things are out in the open, and they're telling you that they are going to collect them. And in some cases, you cannot even opt out. You can try to opt
Wow.
out, but they can say we can deny your ability to opt out if we decide to. So
Wow.
you can't. Either you check the box and say I agree and let them take everything you own, or you don't check the box and you're either relegated to talking on the telephone or not talking at all. And
Yeah.
during COVID, nobody could talk in person, so they had to use these things. So they were seen as the savior of the world, because now we could still continue to operate business and have communication with people and see their faces. But I think people were lulled into sleep into believing that they were safe and innocuous when they're really not. And
Oh,
again, with that rise in the daily use, also became an correlated and documented increase in the rise of the fact that other governments have caught up to us in the fields of AI and even surpassed us in the field of robotics.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Matter of fact, one government controls more humanoid or produces more humanoid robots than the rest of the world combined. And in 2026, in the first half, they had 96% of the humanoid robots being produced in the world.
96%.
Yeah.
So
And
I
they
I
weren't even on
know,
the radar in 2020.
and they weren't even on the radar in 2020.
Right.
And so 6 years and 90 what percent?
96% in the first half of,
96%
yeah,
from not even on the radar 6 years ago. So who are we talking about?
China.
Yeah. Yeah.
China.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So, well, okay, so let's get down to brass tacks on this. So what and you don't have to name names here or anything like that, but what's an example of results that you have just helped clients get that you're just incredibly proud of, John?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what we've discovered is that I'll give you an example. Real estate title insurance. Okay,
Okay.
that's required for most property transfers. Because you need to have insurance just like you have to have homeowners insurance if you've got a mortgage. So if your house burns down, the mortgage can get paid by the insurance company. Blah blah. Well, title insurance is the same way. If somebody comes and makes a claim against your property, your title insurance will cover you if that claim is valid and they can come take your property because the insurance company covers that. So it's
Okay.
required for most mortgages. Also, in that happens with mortgages is that bad guys can intercept the wire transfer documents.
Yeah.
So the purchaser gets a call from the bank, and sometimes it's a deep fake voice
Mhm.
AI
Mhm.
phone call that sounds very real from the bank that says, Mrs. Jones, I see you're going to buy the house on Main Street tomorrow. And this is how much you're supposed to pay. Yes, that's correct. And just to make sure you've got the correct wiring instructions. And you tell them what you've got to say. No, no, this is where you're supposed to send it. You send it to a fraudulent wire location. Now your money is gone forever. So, by the fact that we have been able to insulate those types of transactions in our secure envelope where
Yeah.
the document transfers for the title insurance, the mortgage, all those things, we've saved people billions of dollars from being defrauded.
This is so interesting. I was just like within the last month, I was on a group like because I host a lot of Zoom get-togethers for entrepreneurs, and I was hosting one of these get-togethers, and one of the guys on one of these calls in the last month was talking about how a transaction that they were working on that they almost got taken for $200,000, and if he would have wired that money, that would have been it. They would have lost the two hundred
Yeah.
thousand and stuff,
Yep. Yep.
and fortunately, they figured out what was going on and didn't wire the money, But
Yeah. But
man,
a lot of times though, Kevin, those things are so well done and so sophisticated that even professionals get I mean
yeah,
high I mean I'm talking about very astute professionals get fooled,
yeah,
because it's crazy what happens. So yeah. So the bottom line on that is obviously use a secure communication platform for any type of document transfers. And we could talk about where quantum computing comes in on that in just a minute. But also, if you're going to make a phone call back to verify it, don't make the phone call on the number that recent communication provides,
okay,
because
okay,
they can make it look just like it's to the bank. And I think
uh-huh,
this individual you're talking about, if I might remember that conversation, he actually did call the number, and it was answered as it was the bank. The website looked just like it was the bank and everything. So call the number that you've got previously, or call somebody else who might be in that knowledge tree to verify that information.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Okay, so let's talk, more about like so quantum and how how can somebody well because I know like when it comes to like home security, um, like heck, and I was guilty of this years ago. I'd certainly heard of home security, but it wasn't until after we had somebody break into our house, and I'm like, okay, we got to get a home security system, and we did. And we've had one ever since, and but it took I could have prevented that probably, but I didn't,
Right.
and is I would imagine that people kind of think, oh, it'll be all right, or whatever, or I think I'm covered, good enough already with we're using this, and so what how does somebody know like, okay, you know what, I should really be talking with John here and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what you said is very common. People say, well, I don't have anything to hide. So, I don't have any worries. I can use whatever. And it doesn't matter if they're listening to me because, I'm not saying anything important anyway. And then the other thing is, well, it's already out there. So let me just, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to claw everything back. Well, the fact is, you can't do anything about yesterday, but you can certainly do something about tomorrow.
Yeah.
And what's going on right now with the advent of quantum computing, which early estimates said would be here by the mid 2030s. Google recently said that they've made advances and they'll be here by 2029. IBM just now came out and said no, they'll be here in 2028. What that tells me is they're here now. Okay,
Wow.
they just don't have widespread use. But in anticipation of that, there are bad guys out there who are using a technique that's called harvest now, decrypt later. So they're vacuuming up all this information that's sensitive. And again, remember, it's kind of like the reality shows where they've got a camera in the house and pretty soon people forget it's there and they just start doing the crazy stuff that they were already doing. Same thing with your video communications and even your phone calls and your communications on what they call a secure channel like Signal, which we can talk about later. But the point is that you let your guard down. And now you're starting to say things that you probably shouldn't say on a platform such as this, and you're giving out you're sharing screens with your accountant and it's got your tax returns on there, or your investment advisor, you may have something, or maybe you're even sending stuff to your physician and you've got all your protected health information stuff on there, or you're talking to an insurance company or a bank, what have you. All these things are going on and you're having these conversations because it's convenient and you didn't have to leave your house to go to that meeting, right?
Yeah.
So you've let your guard down. Well, all these bad guys are sitting there, kind of like the peeping tom, with a telescope looking in your window, and they're collecting all this stuff, and they're just holding on to it for the day when they can get their hands on a quantum computer. And again, for those of them in your audience who don't know, a regular computer, standard computer processes information ones and zeros in a linear fashion. Goes down the line, tick 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 tick. Um, a quantum computer takes all that information and bundles it in what's called superpositioning, and they can process multiple layers of information at the same time. It'll be like, a regular computer comes in and reads one book at a time in the library. The quantum computer can read all the books at one time. All right, that's
Wow.
the analogy.
Wow.
So they take that information and then they use also their superior knowledge and get AI prompts. And now they can shred through that information and look for exactly what they're trying to find very, very quickly and use it to the detriment of you. Whether
Yeah.
it be your social security number, your Medicare number, your bank account number, anything that could be used against you can be, or in certain instances, you might innocently be sending photographs or videos of your children, and now somebody takes do not even quantum computers. They take an AI app called a Nudify app, and they can take those photographs of your child or your grandchild, and they can turn that into a pornographic image.
Wow.
And that's happening now.
Wow.
That's happening right now. So people need to be concerned. I don't know if you know that back in 2024, I believe it was, the Chinese had an attack on all major cell phone networks called Salt Typhoon. And what Salt Typhoon did was it hacked into every major cell carrier, and it actually got the information on all your calls and your text messages, probably not guaranteed, but probably including the context, the recordings of your calls. And the FBI, the lady who was in charge of the cybersecurity division that investigated this, said that she could not imagine that a scenario where every single American was not affected because of the depth of this, and they think it's still ongoing. So what the FBI recommended was that if you're going to have a sensitive phone call, if you're going to have send a sensitive text, do it on a secure channel
Okay.
because of the hacks that were or already there. And then even with Arctic Frost, Special Counsel Jack Smith, we found out that our own government was spying on us. You know, they said they subpoenaed the cell phone records of not only elected officials but also private citizens, and they
Yeah.
got all that information. So with
Yeah.
our platform, you know, you can have a totally secure conversation, and if somebody subpoenaed the records, we don't store anything at all on our servers except what's necessary to process your account and provide you support. So nobody can tell who you're talking to, let alone what you're saying. Plus,
Okay.
unlike the other platforms, we don't store, we don't sell, we don't share or monetize data in any way. And data,
Okay.
as you know, is massively valuable. By the way,
Yeah.
anything that you're using that claims to be free is not free. You're
Yeah.
paying for it with your data, and they're
Yeah.
collecting massive amounts of data on you. And they've actually said data is the new gold.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And I think people are really starting to realize that too with I mean, just all the stuff that's happening in AI. I mean, there's some really great stuff happening, but there's some downright scary stuff happening too, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
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 Wow.
Well,
Wow.
again, the processing capabilities of quantum computing makes everything you thought was secure totally public information in the right
Wow.
hands or the wrong
Wow.
hands, I should say. So it's
Okay.
going to change the game. And actually, the government, federal President Trump issued two executive orders, I believe one in his first term and one in his last term, maybe two, that requires all federal agencies to use quantum resistant technology. Uh, it's called post quantum cryptography. It's hard to say. By standards that are approved by the National Institutes of Standards and Technology, or NIST, by the year 2030. So we've already solved the large portion of that by having our communication platform using those NIST approved algorithms to protect people from quantum computers in the short term. So we've got the large part of that solved. Now we don't
Okay.
handle data storage at rest. If you're sending something to me and it's stored on my phone, like I download a document on my computer or on my own server, that's up to me to secure that. But the transit of that data, we've got that completely insulated as best we can with the current technology from quantum computing.
Okay. Well, okay, so now that we've got some context set here, people have an understanding of who you are and what you're all about, John. I want to shift gears just a little bit here.
Okay.
I want to start talking about the relationship side of this.
Okay.
So, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
You know, it's funny you say that because I've actually thought about that quite some time. Back when my wife and I were first married, we started uh, donating heavily and participating heavily with the Christian Broadcasting Network.
Okay.
Pat Robertson was the founder of that,
I
and
remember that.
we got to be friends with him and his family actually as a result. But I've traced it back, and every meaningful relationship I have right now, including the one with Joel, is can be traced directly back to connections I made that were either introduced directly by Pat Robertson or somebody in his organization at
Wow.
an event or through that organization. So yeah, I mean,
Wow.
I've had relationships in the past, but in my current role, what I'm doing now, everything that I can trace it all back to relationships through the Robertson family.
Okay. Okay. So give us an example of like a relationship that you met through the Robertson family that had just been really impactful in your
So,
life.
and I'll go back to the example with Ben Carson and the example with Joel again.
Okay.
Um, uh, uh, so I met a man. We actually got invited. The Christian Broadcasting Network chartered a trip on a sailing ship. It's called the Footsteps of Paul, and we
Okay.
started off in the Black Sea, right outside of Istanbul or Constantinople, Turkey, and we were going to sail through the Bosphorus Straits down into the Aegean Sea and go everywhere the Apostle Paul went during his one of his missionary journeys, except shipwreck and jail. Um, so I just wanted to stay away from those two. Um, but but on that boat, the very first night when we were having dinner, I met a man, and he's the one who introduced me to a lot of the people I'm talking about through that relationship, and that also led me to the group that Joel and I are members of, which is what also led me to the knowledge of a fundraising organization called Act Blue that's used to raise money for a lot of uh, left leaning causes. And I mean, full disclosure, my political leanings are on the opposite side of the aisle, and I found out there was no alternative to that that was meaningful on the conservative side of the line. So we created the precursor of what we have now, which was one component of it through that. So all those things kind of can be traced back to me meeting that guy on that boat who invited me to join this organization where I got enough political knowledge to know that this was an important thing.
Wow. Wow. And you met Joel through that path as
That
well.
organization. Yep, yep, exactly. Yep.
And so now I want to hear more about what's happening because I'm friends with Joel too and stuff. So now I want to hear more about the Joel story and how you guys met and all of that kind of stuff.
Well, I've been a member of this organization that we're involved in, and I can't say the name of it because it's still kind of under the radar organization. But I mean, but the point is that we'd seen each other several times. And then at the last meeting I attended, he and I actually sat next to each other at dinner. And I had
Okay.
given a presentation that morning on our secure communication platform, and he was interested. So we talked, and next thing you know, he started introducing me to people, and you being one of them.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, I'll tell you, yeah, when he reached out to me, he definitely spoke very highly of you and was like, Kev, you really need to meet John and just get to know him and because there's a whole lot of people in your world that would appreciate knowing about John and what he's doing, you know? And so and after getting to know you a little bit, especially now after doing the interview here too, he was right on the mark with that for sure. You know, he was right on the mark. Well, so I want to dig a little bit deeper into this. So, what is an example of a situation where you personally, John, got to make a really substantial impact? Maybe in the moment, maybe it even surprised you a little bit, and yet you also know that would have never been possible if not for your relationship with either one of the folks that you just been talking about. What's an example of a situation where you were empowered that way?
Well, let me go back before I started doing this. When I was in dentistry,
Okay.
I had been involved in dental politics my entire time. I actually was on the national board of trustees for what's called the American Student Dental Association, which is the student arm of the American Dental Association. I actually ran for national president. I didn't win, but I was still on the board of trustees after that. And so I developed relationships there as well. But also because of that, when I got out of the Air Force, I became very involved in the South Carolina Dental Association and eventually became on their board of trustees as well. Um, in 2001, I discovered a need where children and my dental practice was a very complex, comprehensive restorative and cosmetic practice where I saw mostly adults in a very nice building for all cash. I accepted no insurance whatsoever because I wanted to treat patients' needs, not their insurance policy. So it was a different type of practice. But in 2001, I discovered a need where kids who had Medicaid, low income children, were either getting no dental care at all. They were getting the worst care you've ever seen in your life because they're being treated like second class citizens or animals in some cases, or they're being used by some of these organizations, like you've seen recently in the news, to defraud the government out of millions and millions of dollars, right? So
Wow.
I didn't think any of those was proper. So I basically started an experiment where I got an old RV and I gutted it, and I started going to see kids at schools as an experiment to see if that model I had thought about would work. That was an idea on January 21st, 2001. On
Okay.
January 23rd, I made a call to the executive director of the Dental Association and told him my idea. And on March 30th, I was fully operational.
Wow.
Now,
That's fast.
it's way fast, especially when you understand that I had to purchase an RV, get it gutted, get
Yeah.
equipment put in it, get all the approvals from all the government regulatory bodies, and also get contract with the school and get all that started. But it was because of the long-standing relationships I had made throughout the years. When I made a phone call to any individual you can name, either they knew who I was or they knew my reputation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was, and I won't say it was easy, but it was doable.
Yeah.
And we got it done very quickly. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of the result of developing relationships over your lifetime, and making sure that when you say something, your word is your bond.
That's
And
right.
when you actually and you perform, you do what you say you're going to do,
Yeah.
and you do more than you people expect, and then they come to expect a lot.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I'll tell you, yeah, man, that hits home so much because, I've been doing what I do for 22 years now with one simple little litmus test. Every time I make an introduction, I'm always like, is this going to help me further the relationship that I already have with these people and stuff, with both parties,
Mhm.
and just because you're right, our word and what we say we're going to do and just showing up that way, I mean, that's how people, like, this that's how we create trust.
Right.
And trust, I'll tell you what, that especially in our digital AI world, man, trust is becoming more and more valuable all the time,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
it is.
so, yeah, wow. Well, for anyone who might be listening to this and now kind of thinking to themselves, man, I really need to talk with John and stuff. And maybe they're thinking of friends because, I've have lots of entrepreneurs in my world and stuff. And so I bet a lot of them are just going, okay, you know what? My eyes were opened here a little bit today. So any websites, any resources we can share with folks, John?
Yeah, so again, our platform is called Quanta Enterprise Comms. And the website is www.quanta, Quanta, sure,
Okay.
Sure, quantasure.com.
Okay.
And if they want to email me, they can email me at jreese, Reese, at quantasure.com. Be happy to answer anybody's questions. Take a look at the website, though. There's a wealth of information on the features we have that are unique to us. The main one being that we're built around zero trust. So meaning that you only communicate with people that are in your trusted circle, like you just said, Kevin.
Okay. Uh,
And nobody can spam you, and nobody can hijack your conversations. And then also there's some comparison charts in there that compare us to the other platforms that are out there that people are commonly using, and just show where we're different. And then the final thing is there's a news tab that talks about some of the current threats, and then also some of the other interviews I've been on, been invited to be on. And then of course the quantum computing tab kind of tells about future threats. So there's a
okay.
lot of information on there. it gets kind of nerdy in some cases, but we have to talk to tech people that get down in the weeds like that, and we also talk to normal people like me and you.
So you got the tech people covered and you got the normal people covered
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
aren't
and
I guess I should just say the non-tech people.
yeah,
So
yeah. Well, I get in trouble by for a lot of people because it's again it's truly that God has a sense of humor because I'm the least tech guy you know. I can talk the talk and I can understand and I can actually come up with a lot of ideas, but when it comes to wanting to use it on a regular basis, I am the most resistant. I'm just resistant to it.
yeah, yeah, I can totally relate to that because I'm
I
kind
mean,
of
I'd
the
rather
same
be
way.
I'd rather be having an in-person conversation with
Yeah,
you
yeah,
than sitting behind a computer. And I'd rather, write you a note than type something out and email it to you. You know, it's just so much more
yeah,
personal.
yeah, absolutely.
And I think we've lost that, Kevin. I mean, I hate to go down a rabbit trail in your at the end of your interview, but that's one of the things that Americans in general and people across the globe, I guess, have lost
Yeah,
is the ability to have human contact. And
yeah,
COVID made it worse. But I mean, people just don't know how to have an actual conversation with each
yeah,
other and
yeah.
resolve differences. We're more alike than we are different, but they
Yes, we
focus
are.
on the differences and then they create conflicts that don't need to exist, or if they do exist, they don't need to exist for long. You can
Yeah,
resolve most of them by a simple, I mean, it's a simple misunderstanding lots of times,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
or
And you know what?
miscommunication.
You're right. I mean, you see so much of this craziness and stuff in social media and the news and all of that kind of stuff. But yet, I don't. Man, in my world, I mean, I'm getting entrepreneurs together all the time. I don't see none of that. I mean, I don't see that when I travel either. When I travel and just go, I'm on vacation or whatever. I mean, people are great. And so yeah. I mean, you're right. We are all way more alike than we are different. And every one of us, I mean, especially us entrepreneurs, we're all doing the best we can with what we got. We just want to
Right.
make our biggest impact. And so,
Yep.
and well, I'll tell you, we'll make it nice and easy. So if you're listening to this, there's the links right down below for John's website there, so you can just click through to that and stuff. And John, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you, and I'm excited to get this out there and share it with folks because we're gonna wake some folks up. So,
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be with you, and I'm glad to get to know you too.
all right.